इंडिया का रिपोर्ट कार्ड कैसे दिखता है? If you were to ask what India's economic performance has been like compared to other countries, then where does India stand today? Let's take a look at where India stands on the basis of a chart called the health life expectancy measure in terms of years and wealth income per person chart. So on this chart, along these two parameters, India stands somewhere in the middle, slightly below the middle. So we have an income per person of $5,903 in the year 2015, and we have life expectancy of 67 years. So as I was saying, somewhere in the middle. But no Indian student has ever had only one question asked of him or her कि भैया तुमको कितना मिला. दूसरा सवाल हमेशा ये होता है कि टॉपर को कितना मिला. तो इस रिपोर्ट कार्ड पे टॉपर को कितना मिला? टॉपर को मिला $132,000 in the year 2015. So the average Qatari is about 22 times as rich as the average Indian. And we have a long, long way to go before we can become as rich as Qatar, or for that matter, anywhere close to as rich as Qatar. अमीर होने का एक फायदा ये है that you earn a lot of money, but you also live longer. The average Indian lives to the age of 67. The average Qatari lives to the age of 82. But if you want to take a look at the other end of the spectrum, Qatar se hatke, let's go down and take a look at the poorest nation in our database, and that's a Central African Republic. A citizen of the Central African Republic earns 1/10 as much as the average Indian at $599. And one problem with being poor is you are not able to afford better healthcare services, better nutrition for your citizens. And the average citizen in the Central African Republic lives only until the age of 54. So, like I said, India is somewhere in the middle, not as bad as the Central African Republic, but not as rich as the average Qatari either. And this is India. How has India done over time? So, we know what India looks like in the year 2015. What does India's situation look like, say, for example, in the year 1800? If you go back to the year 1800, then India had an average life expectancy of about 25 in the year 1800 and an income per person of 1052. So the average Indian today is about 6 times as rich as the average Indian in the year 1800. The average Indian today has a life expectancy of about 67 years, so a little less than 3 times that of the average Indian in the year 1800. What about the year 1900? In the year 1900, the average Indian had a life expectancy of about 18. So difficult to it maybe to believe, but by 100 years, we had actually reduced our life expectancy all the way down to 18. And our income per person had barely budged. Takriban 1050 tha, it has now become approximately 1200. What about when we gained our independence? What about the year 1947? In the year 1947, India's income per person had reduced to 924, but the good news is the life expectancy had gone up to 32. Not great compared to other nations at that point of time, but not bad either. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to play out India's history from the year 1947 up until, roughly speaking, the year 1982. And take a look at how India's life expectancy increases, but India's income per person doesn't change all that much. We went from about 1000 odd to about 1500 odd, which sounds like a lot. We increased by about 50%, but the trouble is this was over nearly 40 years. So the per year growth rate unfortunately wasn't all that much. But chalo theek hai. The life expectancy has gone up to 56 and there has been some progress on an economic front. What about 1986 until today? What have the last approximately 30 years meant for the Indian economy? As you can see by taking a look at this chart, the near vertical growth that you see over here has been replaced by a very sharp turn to the right. In effect, India in the year 2015 has an income of 5,903, as we saw earlier. We basically have quadrupled our income over the last 30 years. So we grew by about 50% from 1947 to 1986. We grew by about 400% over the last 30 years. And that's been India's growth story since roughly the time of the economic reforms of 1991 and a little before that. And as you might imagine, that's a remarkable growth story. However, it's not as remarkable as you would want it to be. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, let's go back to the year, say for example 1950, and compare how India's growth story plays out in comparison with another country, South Korea. तो 1950 में what was South Korea like and what was India like? South Korea had an income per person of 807 and a life expectancy of 43. India had an income per person of 908 and a life expectancy of 35. So South Korea was better than us where life expectancy was concerned, but was poorer than us where income per person was concerned. And what happens 1950 onwards until today? South Korea, as you can see, is running the kind of race that Usain Bolt runs. And if you take a look at how the race plays out, it doesn't really work out well for India. So we've had remarkable growth from 1947 until today. हजार का तकरीबन 6000 कर दिया. We grew our income from 1000 to 6000. But the trouble is, South Korea grew by a factor of what, nearly 60. South Korea had an income per person of 800, and that had resulted by the year 2015 in an income per person of 34. Unimaginably large compared to India. And to me, this is what economics is all about. How is it that two countries that were roughly at the same point in the year 1947 ended up being so wildly divergent by the year 2015? साउथ कोरिया ने ऐसा क्या किया जो हमने नहीं किया? हमने ऐसा क्या किया जो साउथ कोरिया ने नहीं किया? If you really want to study economics, I think it is important to answer questions such as these. The study of economics is a study of how countries grow rich over time, what they do and what they don't do in order to increase their growth rate as much as possible. And South Korea, as you can see, did some things that were right. India, as you can see, did some things that were wrong. What specifically were those things? Is what we're going to try and analyze in future classes. By the way, a couple of points. If you take a look at, say, for example, South Korea today and India today, one thing that is extremely plausible is the fact that South Korea grew as much as she did well because India has many more people than does South Korea. Except that argument isn't entirely right. And the reason that argument isn't entirely right is because take a look at China. China has more people than we do today, yet is richer than we are today. Can't just be population. Maybe it is because of our neighbors. Maybe the fact that we've had to fight so many wars with Pakistan is what has held us back. Well, South Korea has been at war with North Korea ever since those two countries were formed. So it can't be just bad neighbors either. So, what are the reasons behind why South Korea is where she is, why Japan is where she is, why Qatar is where she is, why America is where she is, and why we are where we are? So, as I'm concerned, इसी का नाम economics है. And in later classes, we're going to take a look at exactly what we need to do in order to push India from where she is today up over here to where the rather more rich nations of the world are. That is our journey over the next so many videos that we're going to come up with. What I used to create this simple video is a wonderful software called gapminder.org. That's Gapminder, GAPMINDER.org. Please take a look at it. All you need is an internet connection and a browser, and you can figure out so many different things about the world by just using this software. My name is Ashish Kulkarni. I hope you'll join me for the rest of the series. Thank you so much.